Hello, everyone. It's good to see you all. Happy Sphinx to each and every one of you. My name is Joseph Conyers, and I wear a lot of different hats. I've worn a lot of different hats with the Sphinx organization. I was an inaugural semifinalist with Melissa White over here. I've been a Medal of Excellence winner. I've played in the orchestra. I'm a juror this year. I've done a lot of different things. I'm currently the principal double bass of the Philadelphia Orchestra, and I'm the founder and vision advisor for Project 440, an organization in Philadelphia that uses music as a tool to teach life skills needed to thrive. And I'm on the faculty of the Juilliard School. And I think it's for that reason why folks have, or Sphinx decided that it would be nice to have a session with some folks who I would say, in a lot of ways, are probably busier than I am. This is the Portfolio Life, the Good Hustle, also known as the Good Hustle. I nicknamed it myself Black, Booked, and Busy. So I'm so honored to be sharing the stage with these esteemed colleagues of mine. These are some really fantastic people, and I'm gonna have them introduce themselves because there's no way I can name all the achievements because it's overwhelming, as you will hear. And then we'll have some conversations about how on earth these folks do it all, why they do it all, and how we take care of ourselves in the process. So I don't know who wants to start. Are we going to start with Maestro Gupton or Dr. Rogers or Ms. White? Okay, there we go.
I knew it was going to be this way. Good, thank you, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone here, everyone virtually. It's great to be back. We were just talking backstage. Joe and I met a month before the inaugural Sphinx competition, and then we were here together for that inaugural Sphinx competition. So we go way back, and I'll say it's been quite a hustle, but the hustle is made good when you can enjoy your colleagues and when you can make friends with the people who you are doing the things you're doing with. And so luckily all of us on stage have that story to share. My name is Melissa White. I am a violinist. I am a solo performer. I am a founding member of the Harlem Quartet. And I also play in lots of different chamber ensembles. I'm a member of Kaleidoscope Collective, based over in London. And then additionally, I'm on faculty at the University at Buffalo and NYU. And then most recently, I became the artistic director of Clarion Concerts, which is up in Hudson, New York, small series. So I'm excited to get to do the things that I do, and as Joe says, it's a booked schedule, it's busy, but it's a nice bag of things when you can enjoy what it is you're doing. So happy to be here and excited to chat.
Excellent. I love everything. It's like, oh yeah, and this and this and this. Hello, my name is Eugene Rogers, and such a pleasure and honor to be here. When I think about my work life, I can say that I love everything I'm doing, and that is for me at the impetus of it all. With Sphinx, I'm the founding conductor of EXIGENCE, vocal ensemble, and we perform roughly 3 to 5 times a year. My job, my university job is at the University of Michigan, where I'm the director of choral activities there, and I run the graduate conducting program as well as administer 9 choirs with faculty and graduate students. And then I commute weekly to conduct a symphony chorus in the Washington, D.C. area called the Washington Chorus that works with the National Symphony and Baltimore Symphony frequently and the National Philharmonic. And in addition to that, I have my own choral series that I also curate with various works and composers throughout the year. So it's all, for me, it's a lot, but it also works well with the energy and just the love of the work. So thank you.
Good afternoon. My name is Damon Gupton. I'm from Detroit, Michigan. I am a graduate of the school that Dr. Rogers teaches at. That is the University of Michigan. Go Blue.
Go Blue.
I studied music education there, could not get into grad school for conducting, so decided to go to school for theater, went to the Juilliard Drama School in New York, came out of Juilliard, started mixing it up. A girlfriend at the time was at the Aspen Music Festival, and that's where I decided to go to get some further music training, where I met this gentleman at Aspen, and for the last however many years, I've had the pleasure and privilege to mix up careers between conducting orchestras and doing stage and television and film, and I'm still learning as I go and putting one foot in front of the other, but that's pretty much my background there, and it is indeed a hustle, right? So.
Thank you. And we, Damon and I, we actually just worked together in Philadelphia on Monday for the MLK concert, where he conducted an incredible program with the Philadelphia Orchestra, so bravo to you on that. So I'm gonna go to some of the why, because a few things. One of the things that I hate, so for those watching, is people ask, like, do you know the word no? Or why do you pack your life, or you must really love it? There's some things that I do love, honestly, in the work. Some things I don't love as much. But there's definitely something that drives me to do the work that I do. And for me, particularly, I love the fact that I'm on the stage with the Philadelphia Orchestra. I recognize it as a place of a position where I can be an encouragement to young people. That gives me a lot of fuel. What our field and what our music can be to communities and how we can bring people together, that's my fuel. And looking and seeing how things can be so honestly a little bit messed up, and how some of our organizations work historically, and looking for change that benefits everyone, gives me a lot of fuel. So those are some things that inspire me. Is there any one thing in particular between the three of y'all, or we can go down the line, that sticks out, that gives you the fuel to keep so busy? Because y'all are really busy. I mean, you live here, but you run a choir in Washington, D.C. Melissa's in a different city every other hour, so you better catch her while you can. And Damon is jumping from a movie set to the stage, to the podium of the great orchestras of our country. So, what gives you the inspiration to keep forward, keep going forward?
For me, first of all, as I said, I love what I do. I think if I didn't love people and didn't love the craft, the art form, I would dread it. I mean, I think that sometimes, because I get that question asked to me a lot, like, gosh, you're here every week, but I absolutely love both things equally, people and the music. And I think also for me, to be very candid, I think another part of it is getting opportunities that sometimes have been closed off to people that look like us, and feeling like, this is a chance for us to finally have someone in the space. Why not me? And I think the key is, which we'll get to later, is me knowing, okay, when have I reached that level or that burnout point? And obviously we'll talk about that. But that's for me why. For me, that's my why.
That's a great point. And then also a good point about knowing when to say no, Joe. I feel my husband's probably like, Melissa doesn't know when to say no. But you know what it is? Like, first of all, there's not a lot of, when someone's like, what don't you want to do? I'm not sure, because what I do want to do is be able to provide opportunities and open these doors for a flood of people to come in that look like us, that represent the audience we want to see where we are. And we don't see them yet, right? Yep. And so, for instance, taking on this artistic directorship, I've never done anything like that. But what I know is now I get to bring artists who I know are going to be fantastic, who I know are going to produce a show that is going to move an audience and is going to bring in new audiences. And so to be able to do that means I'm adding to my plate, adding to the hustle, but it's also what's inspiring me to keep going. So it's like the fuel adds, which adds to my plate, but at the same time, it keeps me inspired, because I feel like it's what we need, and it's what it takes to keep this thing growing, this thing going.
Damon?
I'll second or third everything that they're saying. I think for me also is a great sense of the gift of exploration that we have that a lot of people haven't been afforded before us. So for me, I think a lot of my drive has to be the exploration, the exploratory. I have no idea sometimes where it's going, how it's going, and that kind of actually fuels me from one place to the other. It isn't so fixed, or it isn't so known or rote, but I think for me, the unknown is what kind of drives me and drives me crazy at the same time.
The journey itself.
The journey itself, yeah. So.
No, that's amazing.
I also want to add that as a conductor, one of the things that we also get to do as performers is also to promote artists or voices whose stories have never been told or whose names are not known sometimes in the main concert halls, and given the chance to give voice and have those voices be seen and heard on stage, I think is an honor. And as a conductor, we really get also that opportunity that I feel that's a gift.
Yep. No, we're a stage of firsts, particularly when it comes to being Black in the spaces that we are in. I just wanted to lean a little bit more into that and how that adds to the fuel, specifically. I mean, because I know it really is. I mean, I see it as a duty of mine. And everyone's different, so I'm not saying this is something people should feel. I'm saying this is how I feel. But it really is a duty for me to do everything I can. I like the way you said, to like paving the way so that others can follow behind. And so it's easier.
Yes.
Because, I mean, a lot of folks did a whole lot of stuff for us to make it easier for us to be here today. And so in a lot of ways, I personally feel like I owe it to them. And anything that I'm going through or any struggle that I'm going through is cake compared to what those before us did.
It's always interesting to keep that in mind too. Sometimes I lose track of that, and you get a little full of your stuff and whatnot, get to complaining and whatnot, and then you realize, no, you're actually standing on shoulders way stronger than yours.
Yes.
So I hear that completely.
It's true. Joe and I are on the jury this year for the competition, and you know what I can't stop thinking about? Everyone who's competing this year has only known a life with Sphinx.
That's right.
They can look at YouTube, they can look at social media, and they see, since they were able to see things, they can see people who look like them. Maybe not all the time when they go out to live concerts and such, but like they can find us and look back and see us and see what we've done. And that already is awesome. We being the first, when we showed up to the first Sphinx competition, we were blown away that there were 13 people who looked like us in the USA.
I'll never forget it, because I mean, to be who was excited about classical music like I was, and Black. It was like being on like a different planet. Like all of a sudden finding your kind. Like it was amazing. I'll never forget it. Because some people ask, like, why is that experience important? But it was important because I actually felt seen and part of a family for the very first time. And for folks to know that they're a part of that family is really, really important, which is why we all love Sphinx.
So grounding too. It grounds you in a different way when you feel like you have the place and the space,
You know, I think for me, sometimes I have to also not be burdened by the first. I think that's the side of being the first that I have to remind myself that people from other backgrounds are mediocre every day, and it's okay if I have a mediocre day.
No, it's true. I hear that.
I do feel like I'm not allowed to do that, and I have to remind myself it is okay. But that first also comes with, for me, sometimes feeling a lot of responsibility. So it's that balancing that, the joy of it, but also the weight.
Agreed.
No, I definitely hear that. I definitely feel that. Well, we're going to get to a little practical now. How? Because one thing that you may not realize is that everyone up here has a clone who's out doing their other stuff, doing their emails and doing some practicing, and which is so yeah. How is it possible? I mean, and we can talk very practically. For example, I'll start with myself. I'll very happily admit that I have an assistant. I've done work where I've needed other assistants and folks to help so I can organize my life, because there's no way I could do it all. And I think what's really important is identifying in your life when you need that assistance, and building up the trust to allow someone to enter your space and handle your business, because that is hard. It's very, very hard to do. So talk to me about how do you do it outside of your clones?
I mean, if we're being really practical, I still keep a handwritten calendar. I know it's real 1980s, but I'm a visual person, and I need to see if I say yes to this in January 2026, when are we going to prepare for this? And if I'm preparing for this in September, but I'm playing in September, when had I prepared for September? So visually, this needs to make sense in my brain when it will work and be able to happen. But also, when I write it down, it comes into my brain in a way where I'm living it and feeling it and thinking about it. So it's not just a to-do list. It's like something that I have felt is going to be integrated, and it is my life in that way. So that's very helpful for me. But then also being able to know when you do need help. So I do have an assistant who helps with all of the logistics, because it does get crazy.
What I will say is that I envy you both with your assistants. I would like one. I have graduate student assistants, and they help me a great deal, I must say that. But I generally manage my own calendar. And I do that because I am obviously reporting to a lot of different folks, and I like to know when I need a day that I need to schedule a meeting with myself. I'm not going to be asked, what's going on, why are you not here? But that's how I do it, is I do manage my own with the assistance of my graduate students, though I am in desperate need of a personal assistant. I will be talking to you both about this afterwards. So that for me is how I manage. And scheduling time, really, I actually put on my schedule meetings with myself. And sometimes that's work, and sometimes it's just to say I'm busy.
Absolutely. And we'll get to the self-care part quickly. Who puts your flights?
I do that.
Wowzers. That's impressive. That's good.
I need a little help now.
And Damon, yourself.
Oh, yeah, I definitely have assistance. I think for me, the two worlds make things a little trickier for me sometimes, so I absolutely have to have some help in terms of where I need to be and what I need to be doing. One world requires you to know exactly where you're going to be 2 years from now or a year from now. The other world is like, what are you doing next Tuesday? And so sometimes it's kind of impossible for me to juggle all of that stuff. So I definitely have to have some assistance. In the direct answer to your question, though, how do you do what you do? I have no idea. So it's just one foot in front of the other and flowing with the wind. Again, just that exploration. It's so not fixed. You know, you kind of just have to flow, which is its own beautiful lesson, you know, that you kind of have to just be able to shift.
Yeah. And I know also.
Well, can I just piggyback? Because in a way, it does sound like we can do it because we have the assistants to be able to do it. But there was a time none of us had assistants.
That is correct.
And the hustle was still real. Like, we were still hustling. And I think for me, what I would say is I've also found systems for whatever works for you is very helpful. And to do your systems, even when you don't think you need your systems, because when you do need your systems, having practiced them, that's when it counts. And that's when you're able to like rely on knowing this will be there, I will do this here, that I will have this time to be able to do that there, and then this will be done. And that is how the things will get in. That's one thing. The other thing is how you do little details manifests in how you do the bigger things, and when you're asked to do things and when you're invited to be a part of things. So even when you're doing something and it doesn't quite seem like it matters, like writing that thank you email, following up on that text to just let them know, I got it, I'm on it. You know, I can't deliver by Monday, it'll be to you by Tuesday. That communication, getting back to people, it really helps keep the hustle going along. They know they can rely on you. They will be calling you again, even if you can't do it this time, because you were the person that followed up. So the details matter. Create systems that help you. You know, if you have a list, if you like emojis, like get those emojis and keep your list of what you need to do, and be checking it.
That is very, very sage advice to any young person out there in communication. If you want to be followed up and looked at as reliable. To Melissa's point, if someone writes an email, just say, got it, I'll get back to you in a few days. But if there's silence for a long time, I mean, they probably moved on to someone else by that point, and you might miss out. Any other little tricks? I mean, one of my own tricks is, like, for example, on even as simple as what's it called? Email. Google, sorry, I was trying to say Google and email at the same time, and it was Gmail, but that's anyway, whatever. And the snooze function. Who knows the snooze function on your emails? You can snooze an email, so when you get it, you're like, oh, don't have time for that today, but I can get to it in 2 days. You can snooze it so it pops back in your box 2 days later. It's amazing. Highly recommend it. It's how I actually am able to manage a crazy inbox. What about anyone else got any tricks like
Boomerang? I use that a lot. It's a similar thing on Gmail. You can it's an add-on for it sends your emails back. You schedule when it comes back.
Yeah.
I do that a ton. I also, when I can, like front load emails and send them later. Like that is like the best thing in the world, because it's like I'm dealing with this right now because I'm not going to have time on Monday.
Right.
So the email piece, that's the part I will say. Communication, you know, your word, we all know, I mean, your word is money. I mean, and if people cannot rely on you, it absolutely will affect, I think, how much work you will get in the future as well. So that's all I'd add to that.
Awesome. Now, I assume you have an agent or agents or something to do. Many, got it. So talk about interfacing with them. And Melissa, I know you're in the same boat. Eugene, I'm not sure.
I had one.
You had one, okay. So when you bring an agent, let's talk about a few things. When you're bringing an agent into your life, how do you know they're a good one? How much do you allow them to control your life? Because I assume they're in the business of making money, so they're going to book you as much as possible. Like, how do you set up those guardrails so that you can still eat in the morning?
Well, it's hard because I feel like getting good representation is like dating people. You know, it takes time. You got to get to know them. So you may not know what you have at first. And I've had certain experiences, especially on the musical side of things, where you kind of spend a lot of time trying to figure each other out, only to realize that's not the right partnership. Yeah. Like I personally have been dropped twice by my agents, and a lot of that has to do with my other career and scheduling, but also just mentalities, how you see the world, how you see growth, how you see development, and also what can you realistically do for me. Like in my case, musically, I had relationships with orchestras before the management, right. And then you get the management and you realize they're just taking commission from the things that you already had relationships. And so it's like, what else? How are we building? And then you start to, weed out. The acting side of things, that's a whole nother journey. I've got like managers on both coasts and agents, and it gets a little trickier. But the music side of stuff is the thing that I've been most intrigued and concerned by, because it feels like it should be something that's very specific and easier to do, and it's been anything but. Yeah. So I need to write a book about management, man. Seriously, because I'd be more than happy to.
I would read it. Thank you for sharing what you shared, because I think it's very important to know that it doesn't just work blissfully once you get an agent. And it doesn't necessarily become easier when you get an agent. And the other thing I'll say is, don't let getting an agent define your worth, or if that means you are worth work. You are worth work, and sometimes it might not be a good fit. Sometimes, the agent is out working to book you and to help you have stages or wherever you're presenting yourself to be able to do that. But at the same time, you are feeding ideas to your agent to be able to book. So it is a two-way street. And you don't just get an agent and think, okay, now I'll be good and I'll sit back and I'll have the time to do the rest of my to-do list. No, that to-do list is actually going to grow. So again, being able to have good communication with your agents, being able to talk not just about business, but sort of seeing how it is they work. Are they looking for an artist who wants to do this 100% of the time? That may or may not be you. I personally love having a diversity in my career. I love getting to teach, and I love being there for my students, which takes time, and I save that time, so it means I can't be doing concerts all the time, yeah? I do have a manager who books my solo calendar, and then I have separate management for the quartet. So being able to have these managers talk to each other is very helpful for the calendar, but also for the email inbox, all the things. But then, sharing time, like this is time I'll be on a tour with the quartet. I can't just go off and do a concerto during this time. So being able to respect that is really nice. And, it's so intricate, it does take time to find that person.
Can I say one more thing? Actually, my first theatrical agent and the person who's still my theatrical agent for the last 20-something years once told me, remember, I work for you. And she told me that immediately, and I think I would say that to everyone. Like, it's a balance of a relationship, but remember, representation works for you. So you got to kind of craft that and always remember your power in that relationship as you build it with different people.
That's so true. And then also remember, they are, as they represent you, in a way, they're sort of your face out in this industry. So you want someone who has a respectful demeanor, someone who is respected in the industry, someone who will communicate with grace and professionalism. I've worked with agents who don't always work that way. I personally do, so I would like my representation to also be that way.
So all of this sounds very stressful to me.
Are you stressed?
Very stressful. And we're all, as performing artists, I wish the audience sometimes knew what we were doing 3 minutes, 2 minutes before they saw us on that stage. Between writing emails, between taking care of a fire or whatever. There are lots of things that can make what we do very, very stressful. And I think it's really important, and we want to make sure we were able to talk about this, how important it is how important self-care is as part of this process and how we take care of ourselves so that we can run as efficiently as possible with the most energy as possible without burning ourselves out. So, anyone want to give us their tips on how they stay sane? Therapy. All right, very good. Yeah, absolutely.
Exercise, therapy, talking to people who really love you.
Yes.
Finding your community, which is hard, I think, sometimes. But yeah, and I'm not an expert on taking care of myself. I know my wife is out there somewhere and she's like, oh Lord. but it's true, I have a great partner, so that helps. You have good friends, that helps. But I think definitely therapy and meditation for me and those sorts of things. Anything to help you stay grounded, especially now. I mean, come on, man. Last couple of years and this week alone, just taking root.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's reminding myself of why I'm doing it. I have to just always go back to that place because, music for me was a hobby, right? When I first started, I just loved making music. Yeah. I try to remember that feeling as much as possible because the business, if you will, you can lose that and make you jaded. And I am constantly trying to remind myself of that. you know, it's something as simple as hydrating, believe it or not. I forget to drink water when I get busy. And that is something that, like, I have to measure that. How many liters of water? I mean, it seems silly, but it actually is what keeps me healthy, because if I don't have my mental and physical health, I actually can't do any of this. So that part of it is key. Sometimes, honestly, I recharge by putting on Netflix. I'm just going to be honest, and I don't want to think about work for a minute. I just want to be a human being and watch brainless TV for a moment, and it actually sometimes recharges. And sleeping in, believe it or not, that sounds so silly, but I get my life is like 6:37 every day, like just saying, you know what, I am going to take this day and sleep in. And that may only be to 8 o'clock, but it's sleeping in. Right. It's very basic things for me is how I'm able to continue to do this, but just really giving myself permission to do that is, I find, sometimes the biggest challenge.
Ironically, I started lifting weights in college, I think mainly because I was getting so much pressure from my parents and my bass teacher from home. He needs to do something outside of play this bass all day long. So when I started lifting weights, everyone got all excited because I was doing something else, and I was able to put my energy, particularly as someone with obsessive compulsive tendencies, into something else. And I think that was very, very healthy for me. And now it's my routine, it's my life. It's the first thing I do every day. I try to go to the gym first thing in the morning, because for me, it's the hardest thing I will likely do, because it's so physical. I mean, because literally you can get out a lot of aggression when you're lifting hundreds of pounds. So, and then it makes sleeping better. Stress levels, and if someone says something that's irritating, it sits on you less, because it's like, oh, whatever. It just keeps you calm. So now you are you are Queen Yoga of having gotten your license in India. Talk to us about. I mean, you are the epitome of peace and harmony.
Too much. Put us on a panel together. So it's true. One thing I forgot to share at the top is I do have a program. It's called Intermission. And Intermission was birthed with my absolute dearest friend, Elena Uriosti, also a Sphinx La Familia alum. And so we were sitting at our dining room table one day, and we realized separately we had come to love yoga. And we specifically loved this hot room yoga set sequence series, and we could do it anywhere in the world. That's what we love. So we were traveling to play, but we could always pop into this yoga studio. It didn't have to be in English. We knew what to do. And so in this specific series, there's a mirror, there's you, and you're staring at the mirror. And before this, I did not love yoga. In my master's at the New England Conservatory of Music, my teacher asked if I did any yoga, and I was like, no, I don't do any yoga. I didn't tell him, but I was like, I don't like it either. And he's like, I think it would just help you feel the lower part of your body. So getting my master's, I was like, I'll try it, and that's when I fell in love. And what I found is staring at myself in the mirror, doing something completely out of my regime, anything I knew what to do, it makes you fall in love with yourself in a different way. You appreciate what your body can do. You appreciate when you can focus for 60 seconds to balance on one foot while sticking a leg in front of you. And even if you don't stick your leg in front of you, that's not the point. The point is that you tried again. You got back up there, you did it again. And that's what we do as performers, quite frankly. But to do it in a capacity that's not at your instrument is empowering in a very different way. And so then coming back to the practice room with the violin, it sort of rewired my brain and how I thought about things and the little details and the muscles we use. And so Elena and I, over our dinner table, thought about what if we had these concepts when we were young teenagers playing 10 hours a day at summer camp. And this had been part of our study. How beautiful would that have been? So that's how Intermission came to be. And then it started by us hosting retreats for musicians. You don't have to be a professional musician. We still host these retreats. It's happening in November if you want to come. Joe came to our very first retreat.
I survived yoga, y'all.
You don't have to have a basis in yoga. Look, Joe showed up 3 days into the retreat. Joe's like, I got a question. What is yoga? We're like, Joe, you're doing it. So no prior experience required. Just come on out, you all. But really, it's a time for us to recharge, to be around a community that gets it, you can't explain why it's exhausting, right? But it's really exhausting. And so not to have to talk about what we do is re-energizing. To talk about what we do can be re-energizing. It really is there to fill your cup because we always pour from our cup. We're giving, we're performing. So for once, we're not on. You don't have to be on. No one's judging your yoga. Or don't show up. You sleep in. It is your retreat. So it really is a beautiful space. And just a few key takeaways, what I would say is breathing matters. Like pausing throughout your day to take a deep breath. When you inhale, let your belly push out, like fill your body with air. And then as you exhale, just feel the belly come back in and see if your exhale can be longer than your inhale. And see if you can do that again. Do 2. The next time, can you do 3? You've done it. You're deep breathing. So it doesn't even have to be, I'm going to go to a thing, I'm going to make time, I'm going to do a thing. You can do it right now in this room with us. So that's been really good. Thinking about like my feet on the ground, like just being grounded, and sort of like spreading those toes at whatever moment in the day. I think about when I stand up on stage to perform. That's what I think about when I'm up there. And so incorporating this and then holding on to these places in your day where you can do what for you is a checkout is absolutely key.
That's great. Yeah.
I want to come. As I said,
you
I want to
wanna
come in
come?
November.
Let's do a shameless plug, intermissionsessions.com. At first we called it, we would say, what would we say? Right now you register to come, but it used to be like, I forgot what we called the sign up. But as musicians, people thought like, did I get in? And we were like, of course you got in. So we changed the name to a registration from, yeah. Oh, it was an application. They were like, I'm applying, I hope I get in. You got it.
Well, one thing that you touched on, actually you both touched on, and you mentioned it in the intermissions description, was this sense of family. And you, Damon, talked about your circle of friends. And I feel like in our self-care, as musicians, we don't talk about that enough. I feel like sometimes it's hard for us because we're on the go so much. That's hard to, and instead of someone who like stays in the city and works the same place, and you can surround yourself and find that group of friends. But I think finding your people is really, really important. People you can lean on, call. They could be with you in your city, or they can be something. I mean, we all learn how to use Zoom or FaceTime, but just someone where you can talk and vent. I mean, these are very healthy things to be able to do. So I'm just in awe of the fact that y'all can do, again, almost any of what you do and do it so well. So, Damon, I never know. I mean, I'm just watching any old. I'm a Netflix guy too. That's how I let my brain go. I was watching Your Honor. I had no idea, and all of a sudden it pops right on my screen. I hear his voice. there's David. So you never know where you're gonna find him. But yeah, it's really, really incredible. I think we have time for a few questions, and for those of you who have familiarized yourself with the Sphinx app, you can submit any questions for us through the app. Otherwise, there are microphones on the sides of the room, and we can take a few questions from anyone in the audience who has questions for us.
To start, we have a virtual question from Rick Sperling, DEYA, formerly Mosaic Youth Theater of Detroit. Oh. Often I encounter high school students who are agonizing over what they, quote, will be, end quote, feeling the pressure to choose between their passions before college. Could you offer some advice?
Hello, Rick, by the way. I say explore. I mean, I keep coming back to that word, and I used to feel that very same pressure, but I think one of the greatest gifts that was given to me in my life was loosening up the rigidity of I have to know exactly what I'm going to do, and it has to look like this, sound like this, feel like this, and that's in every avenue of my life, but especially career-wise. You come in, you want a particular kind of focus for sure, but at that age, for me, I think exploration was everything, and in today's world, I think the more multi-hyphenate you are. I don't know. I'm into that big time. So I would say that explore. Just it'll come, but you have to explore. For me, that's my take.
For me, I'm not doing anything that I thought I was going to do when I started. I thought I was going to be an opera singer. That's what I wanted to do. All my EXIGENCE people out there, yes, I wanted to be you all. Life definitely took other turns. When I took my first conducting class, I was hooked. I knew that I was going to conduct, but then from there, everything has been a big surprise. And I tell my graduate students, don't try to write your future. Just be prepared. Do good work. Always make sure by your name is excellence. That to me is key. And stay open and follow peace. The fourth thing I would add to that is follow peace. Because sometimes we make decisions, and we all done it, that I knew I shouldn't have done that. But when I follow that peace, every time it's right. So those would be my nuggets.
Great.
I would just say be proactive. As a high school student, you can be proactive about your future. I think a lot of young people think they're just going along for the ride and see what happens. Melissa and I were talking about in the elevator on our little plaque.
Our badge.
Badges, yes. It just says one thing. And like when you graduate from university, like all Curtis said is Joseph Conyers plays the bass. Signed the Curtis Institute of Music. And that's it. And that's technically defines who we are. But if we're proactive in thinking, okay, because when I was at Curtis, I was definitely checking out the gig scene. I was already thinking about what a nonprofit is and how it could help and serve communities. I had to do the work, even if, particularly at that time, the institution wasn't giving me the tools that I need. I will say now, there are a lot more institutions that are helping young musicians out with having these portfolio careers or thinking outside the box. But I can't stress it enough because, and the last thing I'll say is, the industry might tell you what your dream or your goal is, but that may not be the dream or goal for you. So if you can discover what that is for yourself, you can find happiness in that thing, regardless of what the industry says. And that's super important because they will. I'll start a whole nother session. What's the next question?
Hi. So definitely, starting out and earlier in your career, I think I'll just speak for myself. A lot of what motivates my grind is survival and making money to pay bills. I wonder if any of you all have financial advice or just advice in general about things that you did early on or things that you wish you did early on financially that have helped you to get to where you are now.
Love your question, love your honesty, and yes, we were absolutely you, and the hustle is the hustle, and it's real. One thing I would say is right now, when you're doing a budget, first of all, make a budget. And when you make that budget, paying yourself is first. If you make $1, you give yourself 20 cents, okay? So it's not about how much you make, it's about the practice of saving, and that starts immediately. So my first job was at a movie theater when I was 16, and I've had that practice since then. That long, okay? So that would be my first number one thing. The second thing I would say is the hustle is not bad how you do it. So you do your hustle the way you need to do it. If you love a coffee shop, go see if they're hiring. Get a job in that coffee shop. So looking for work can be in other places, and as Joe and Damon were saying, it doesn't have to be what people tell you it has to be. And while you're doing whatever job you're doing, you know who you are, and you are working hard for what it is you are also trying to achieve. So if you're somewhere and you have time on the clock and you can be working on your dreams, you're starting your nonprofit, you're thinking about your auditions, who you're going to email to reach out, you're always working on what it is ultimately your goals are going to be, and then you're real and you're making money, because that is always what we're going to be doing.
You know, I will just say that I never chased money. For me, I always, my mantra that I live by, and I know this is not the case for everybody, is do what you love and the money will come. I just had to keep reminding myself of that even when I was hardly making $1,000 a month sometimes, right out of undergraduate. And at one point I had to have a roommate. I lived on somebody's couch to make ends meet, but I kept saying, I love what I'm doing. And then things began to multiply. But that's what I lived by. It may or may not work for you, but that worked for me.
That was my quote in my high school yearbook.
And I'd say save. Being a musician, being an artist, we have to make choices. This is something I tell my students all the time. We have to make choices. And I chose, at one point in my career, based on how I was doing, as one of my colleagues, Yumi Kendall from Tacit No More podcast, says follow the green lights. And I had enough green lights that I said, okay, I'm willing to be really poor and do this for a while. That was a choice I made. Some of y'all may not be comfortable with being poor. But I had to be comfortable with being poor. I lived in a place my parents came to visit, and my mom literally said, I didn't raise a son to live in a place like this. But that's the sacrifice I made, because I was saving, I had a dream, and I was trying to do the work to get to where I wanted to go. So it might have to be making a choice in that process while following the green lights.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Brittany Jermine, and I'm from Cleveland, Ohio. So I wanted to ask a quick question and kind of switch gears a little bit. So you all have been the first in your respective industries, and thank you so much for all your wisdom. What would you tell a person like myself, a woman trying to be more bold in a space that is still trying to figure out diversity in practice? So I'm trying to keep my job and keep my tongue in spaces, but also trying to push and be bold in some of the things that I believe we should be doing as an organization for Black and Brown students and children, especially when we say that's what our mission is, and that hasn't quite always looked like that in practice. So what would you tell folks like myself?
I've had to bite my tongue a lot in the spaces I'm in. And unfortunately, we are not oftentimes afforded the opportunity to behave in the same way as some of our colleagues in these spaces. It takes a lot. That's why I say I wear myself out at the gym, so I'm too I'm too physically tired to do anything else, but just try to take it in. For me, it's about remembering the why, understanding where I am in the world, whether it's fair or not, and I think that's really, really important, because there are a lot of injustices that we see, and we want to react to them in a certain way. With the advent of YouTube, there's so many great videos of the civil rights era, speaking to civil rights icons. There's one Martin Luther King, and there's one right before the March on Washington, and to hear them speak in that way, it was almost like, wow, they're being really nice, given what had been going on through the whole civil rights era. But that's in these spaces, that's what they had to be, so that we could actually be communicative. Because once I think we become combative in a way and we cannot become communicative, then it's just, there's very little progress that can be made. But it does take a lot of patience. It takes a lot of faith in something, faith in the process, faith in believing. And knowing, and what gives me solace is knowing I'm representing the young people that I work with every time I'm in a room, in a space where I can advocate for them. And so it's worth it for me to find out and maybe do some things that I don't necessarily feel is fair.
In all honesty, I think I'm right there with you. I don't exactly know how to constructively always do that, especially right now at this time. But what I think comes to me hearing your question is the fact that you are, in a sense, while not the first, a first in your place, in your space. And so it's going to be up to you, to find out one foot in front of the other, how you navigate those things. Sometimes you might blow up. I have, and then you reap the benefits of that or the repercussions of that, but then you have to regroup and find out constructively, okay, how can I do it another way? Or no, maybe it was right that I went off at that particular moment. We know the week we just had. You know, we know the time that we're in right now, which is honestly going to require all of us to rethink how we represent ourselves and what we're trying to do in all of our collective spaces in arts and in the world and how we live. So it's like, it's a new adventure right now. So it's kind of like an open slate on how you approach that as well. It's not a direct answer to your question, but I'm stumped like you. Like, I don't know sometimes how to be the first and then be, you know, accepting. They're like, okay, all right, that's cool, you're calm. And then be like, no, my fist wants to go through your head right now. Because we're doing an MLK concert on Martin Luther King Day and y'all don't want to do the full lift every voice and sing.
Yeah.
That happened to me Monday. Or we don't know if we want to do this, X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, but you know what day it is, right? The inauguration's 142 miles away. So you need to hear me right now. And then you'd be surprised because some people meet you there. But sometimes you got to, you know, shake a little bit and get a little crazy on them. You know what I mean? You know. Not really. I mean, it's a balance. It's a balance. And it's always been a balance, though. You know, and that's our job to find that so we can get to where we want to go and make people want to be with us as well, take the journey. Okay, that's my 2 cents.
What he's saying, I'll just say thank you for the work that you do and keep being bold.
Thank you.
Hey.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Hi, my name's Sam. I'm a senior at Michigan State. Go Green.
No. Just kidding, just kidding.
Hopefully there's no Ohio fans in the room.
Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
agreed.
So I'm a career advising intern for College of Music majors, and a lot of them, as soon as I suggest treating your music like it's a business, they get scared because they think that means that they'll be less of an artist if they're more of a business person. So my question is, do you all consider yourselves business people? Have you found any tension between your artistry and your business? And if so, how did you deal with it?
Love it. First of all, I grew up in Lansing. So, hometown. You know what's funny is your question, do I think of myself like a business? No. However, my husband is in finance, and he says I'm a multifaceted business, I think is how he puts it. So actually, what I would tell you to present to your students is not that their art is their business. They are their business. They are the corporation. They are their CEO, their COO, their finance officer. How they run themselves is how this hustle is going to come to be. And their art is one manifestation of who they are as a business. Where do they want to be doing their art? You can word it this way, but really you're saying, where are you going to be bought? Where would you like to be selling yourselves, right? So letting them start to see that it's not just their music that is the business, but they are over it and they are able to take it and guide it and drive it in a way where they can be the CEO of how this business is going to grow. But I love that you're getting them thinking like this in college, because I wasn't thinking like this yet in college. And quite honestly, I still learn most things that I learn on the job. It's on the job learning. So everything I've learned so far, luckily I had mentors I could reach out to and ask them how to be doing this. So just starting to get the brain flowing is a great place to be.
You know, the best advice a friend of mine gave me was never forget about Eugene Rogers Incorporated. Because, and I think the more they understand that you may be hired by folks that will sometimes, they're not thinking about you. They just want what they want. They make their ask. They don't care how tired you are. They don't care how busy you are. But if they can learn, it gives them agency over themselves by thinking, you know what? This is where the line stops for me. This is what I'm willing to do. I'm going to make a decision that's ultimately good for my own agency or business or whatever you think. That for me I live by that principle, and that's whatever you can do to gradually sort of instill that into them, I think they will find themselves feeling like they have a bit more independence, even when working for the system.
Thank you.
Said like a real Wolverine right there. That's what that is.
Thank you very much. And we're getting close on time, so we're going to do this a little rapid fire, if that's okay. But we want to try to get these last questions in.
Hey guys, thank you for being here. My name is Rachel McFarland, and I'm a composer. And I really resonated with what you guys said about the stages of first and seeing it as a duty. I'm a double major, film scoring and video game scoring at Berklee College of Music. And in May, I'm going to be the first person of color to graduate with those 2 majors.
Hey.
And, oh, thank you. But for me, sometimes being in the first as well as other achievements, it's kind of hard to see those achievements as achievements and more as just like a sense of relief. So how do you manage to continuously raise the bar that you guys have for yourselves, but then also create a space to be content and reflect on the things that you have achieved? And how do you also deal with failing with so many eyes on you for being the first?
That's a good one.
So I'm looking at you. Look like you're trying to.
Wait, can you repeat the first part of the question one more time?
Yeah, so it's just about the balance between raising the bar that you have for yourself because of the duty that you see yourself having, and then being content with all the things that you have done until now.
Go ahead.
Again, we'll do this little rapid fire. I'm a little bit, particularly coming from my childhood, a perfectionist. So it's keeping the bar high is pretty easy, and actually the hardest part for me is if I don't reach that bar, being okay with it. Does that make sense? Yeah. And one thing I tell my students is that you'll never regret being over-prepared. So it's one of those things where if your bar is always set so high and you don't quite reach it, you'll probably still land above everybody else just because of how you, does that make sense? Placed it. So that gives me relief, and then I can look back on my life and say like, oh, wow, no, some things did actually work out in the long run.
Yes, still actively practicing to up myself in my craft. So staying inspired by the people you are looking up to, where you want to be, what you want to achieve, and then doing the work every day. It's the little details, right? So you know what it's like to put in the work, honestly putting in that work, not just waiting until you get the thing and learning how to do the thing. So building yourself up little by little. And then, I think we're all thinking about the failure thing. It's hard to learn how to fail, you guys, but it's a part of what we do, right? We've all failed. And I got a recital tonight. I'm like, oh my gosh, my brain is not on a recital tonight. You guys, I can't fail at this recital tonight. So I think knowing that we are there to lift you up, and we know that it's not always a win every time, but it's a learning and it's a lesson, and you're a first and you're doing it and you're gonna keep doing it.
And there's nobody like you, so to do it. Yeah.
I've lost more auditions than I've won. That's what So you have to keep going for it.
Well, somebody say there's no failure, but learning opportunities. Always keep that in mind too.
Hello, my name is Lenora Green Turner, and I want to ask you, how do you combat the obstacles and stay motivated to keep going? I've always been taught to build it and they will come. But when I've built it and told people, or told the people that I think could make it happen, there was a ceiling. Maybe the state has said, you can't do this because you haven't met the quota, or you're not getting the numbers, or things like that. So how do you combat the obstacles?
A no is just a no right now. Also, it's a no because maybe they don't know how to say maybe, which is a closer to a yes, right? So for me, a no is from them, but it means I'm gonna look elsewhere for a yes. And I hear you. I know you're doing that. I know you've done that before. But it's also about community. People are looking to build things all the time, and they're looking for people to partner with, and partnering gives more of a force to be able to grow something, right? So maybe not just building something out of nowhere, maybe starting to look for people with similar mindsets who are doing some of the work, and you can partner and then keep going with more of your idea in a different direction or the same direction.
You know, I think for me, I constantly try to make sure how I'm defining success is fluid, because sometimes success, you may say, this is, if I've done this, this is actually success. But success, did you have one or two people? Were you able? I think sometimes me redefining that at first, and then celebrating that, and then, okay, now let me see how I can go a little further the next time. For me, I really do learn more from my failures, if you will, and try to figure out, okay, let me maybe think back or scale back what success is so that I can have a little victory here. So I think, I don't know what we're talking about specifically, but that's for me is how I keep going when I run up against something, is I find a corner, I'm getting in that corner, and I'm gonna redefine what that victory looks like.
Thank you very much. And thank you all so much for attending this session. If you have any questions for us, we'll be out, I guess where the registration tables are, so the next session can come in. Thank you all panelists. I'm honored to be on the stage with you, and I can't wait to see how things continue to develop in y'all's careers, and we can't wait to hear your stories as well. So when you're out there hustling, keep it good, and we can't wait to hear your story. Thank you so much. Take care.